The world in front of us is different from the world behind us. This is the reality of life for the adventurer as they move from one unexplored landscape to the next. Each new world brings with it a set of new challenges. The tools they used yesterday will not necessarily help them tomorrow. From the oceans to the deserts to the valleys to the mountains, each world is different and requires a different response. We are adventurers. We're called to be at the forefront of expedition into new worlds, walking in places that no one has walked before. In the famous words of James T. Kirk from the Starship Enterprise, boldly going where no one has gone before. Now, before you think that lockdown has taken its toll on me, let me explain what I mean. Jesus created his church to go into all the world. That's the commission that Jesus gives to his church that we can find in the last chapter of Matthew's Gospel. If Jesus was a fan of Star Trek, I think he would have said to boldly go into all the world. As the church emerged from that mountaintop in Galilee, a movement was formed that would shape the future of the world. A mission was given. The church was sent to faithfully continue what Jesus had been sent from the Father to do. John chapter 20, verse 20 recalls something for us that Jesus said to his disciples. As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you. The church was created as a missional community to boldly go into the entire world, to bring the life-changing message of Jesus and to bring people to the life-transforming person of Jesus. Now, a lot has changed since that day. The world has continued to grow and change and evolve, and the church has grown and changed and evolved with it. In fact, there are many places where the church was at the forefront of cultural change and revolution. Education, healthcare, charity, government, art, philosophy, morality have all been shaped by the church. The church was also instrumental in world-changing moments like the Renaissance, the Reformation, the invention of the printing press, the abolition of slavery. At each point, the world in front of them was very different from the world behind them. So why am I telling you all this? Well, simply because we are standing on the brink of a world-changing moment. The world in front of us will be different to the world behind us. Back in March, our world changed overnight. When we woke up on March the 23rd, many of us were aware of the looming threat of this thing called coronavirus. However, I'm not sure many of us would have been able to predict the impact it would have on us or our world. We are now thinking about life after lockdown. This life will be different from the one before lockdown. Our world has changed and will not be the same. Now, of course, not everything has changed or will change. As we think about how we respond to this as a church, many things will stay as they are. We will still be a gathered community. We will still meet together in person in large and small groups, worshipping together, encouraging and challenging one another. The purpose of the church hasn't changed. We still exist to help people find and follow Jesus. The mission Jesus gave to his church, the reason he has sent us, has not changed and will not change. We are therefore confronted with a decision that the church throughout its history has been confronted with. Cling to the past or boldly go into the future. Now, clinging to the past and resisting the future is not an option for us. It's not what Jesus created his church to do. Whereas once the church was at the forefront of cultural change, sadly today it often lags behind. Once the world looked to the church to lead the way, over the last 100 years that has changed. The world started to see the church as irrelevant and disconnected. The good news is that the world doesn't see the church as irrelevant today. The bad news is that's because, generally speaking, the world doesn't see the church today. It's not that when people think about the church, they think it's irrelevant. It's that people don't think about the church. This has happened in large part because the church, like any people group, has fallen victim to two fatal flaws. Firstly, it focused more on what it did than why it did it. The church often spends more time focusing on its methods rather than its mission. It's easy to fall into the trap where we think we are what we do. Secondly, the church drifted inwards. Its focus became more on itself than the people it was created to reach. The more the church looked to itself, the more it held tightly to its practices, the more it became disconnected from the world in which it was created to exist. As we look back through the history of the church, we see this happening time and again. The book of Acts in the New Testament records some of Jesus' final words to his disciples just before he ascended to heaven. Jesus said, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." Within years of the ascension, the church had lost sight of its outward-looking mission. They witnessed in Jerusalem and Judea to like-minded Jews, but stopped. The ends of the earth never came. Within living memory of the resurrection, the church had lost sight of its worldwide purpose and drifted inwards. Is it any wonder we have the same temptation? God's will be done. And so he allowed the church to be scattered throughout the world to keep the mission alive. As we look forward to things going back to normal, if we simply go back to normal, we will just perpetuate this problem. What was normal is no longer normal. If we simply go back to what we did before, at best, we will miss an opportunity to adapt and change in order to refocus on the mission and purpose that God has created for us. At worst, we will become even more irrelevant and disconnected from the world in which Jesus has called us to witness to. The world in front of us is different to the world behind us. We cannot answer tomorrow's questions with yesterday's answers. As we stand with this new world in front of us, I'd like to invite you to come on an adventure with us. It's one with more questions than answers. It's one where we can't rely on what we did yesterday. In this new world that is emerging before us, how do we stay faithful to the mission that Jesus has given to his church? How do we help people find and follow Jesus? How do we reach out into our world, our communities, our places of work, our families and friendship groups? How do we bring the life-transforming message of Jesus into a world that has never been more desperate for it? And how do we do this in a way that ensures the body of Christ, the church, grows in maturity and unity? That is the adventure before us. It's not an easy journey, but it is one worth traveling, as it will help us stand together and rediscover a passion for the purpose for which Jesus created his church. So where do you fit into this adventure? We cannot answer tomorrow's questions with yesterday's answers. We need to discover what the questions are and find answers to them. Therefore, we want to seek God, his wisdom and guidance for us, for how we respond in the short and long term. As someone who's part of the family of FBC, we would love you to stand with us in this, to actively seek God for his church. We've created a digital prayer room to help with this process. This is a place where you can record some of the things you sense that God might be saying to us. Please ensure that whatever you post in the prayer room is encouraging and helpful, seeking to build up, not tear down. We'd love to find ways to dialogue with you about this. If you've something you'd like to talk through with us, then please make contact with one of us directly. I don't know what the future will be like for us as a church. I don't know the impact or the change that this will have on us. I don't have the answers. I don't even have all the questions. But I know that we will navigate this journey together. The world in front of us is different to the world behind us. I also know that we are naturally resistant to change. The role of leadership in this context is to live and lead into the future we may naturally want to resist. So as you seek God for his church, please do seek God for those of us called to this task of leading the church through this adventure. To get started, head over to fbcnext.com/adventure.